He's trying to reclaim the glory of the Soviet Empire, and that includes trying to annex Crimea, Ukraine, Baltic states, also a step up in their nuclear arsenal. And John, actually, we have nuclear, these Russian subs now off the coast of the United States. After the Cold War, they left, but under Mr. Putin's regime, they're now back.
Far too often when the topic of the bare-chested dictator crops up, we speak of Vladimir Putin as perhaps being crazy, but not stupid. His latest move in threatening to bring up the Russian nuclear-tipped missiles along the border may be changing minds quickly. Our guest is a seasoned political and military commentator, having served his nation proudly in the Army and as an advisor to then General David Petraeus. Also author of the book, Government is the Problem. Let's welcome Colonel Patrick Murray into the discussion. Colonel, it's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you, and now let's go ahead and talk about the real problems. Putin adding over 40 new ICBMs this year alone that are capable of piercing any missile defenses. Is this just saber-rattling, or do we really need to be concerned?
Well, this is part of a bigger program that they have of upgrading all of their military capacity. They did 36. They tell us that they had 36 new ICBMs last year, and this year another 40. But I do think this current statement by Putin is in response to what we're doing with the Balkans or the Baltic states as well as Poland, which is to pre-position some heavy equipment there, and that's all in response to what they're doing in Ukraine.
Is there just the, and again, we're always talking about possibles in a situation like this, but is it possible that Putin is going to push himself to a point where he is just going to be unable to do anything more than to push a button and fire a missile?
Well, Putin wants to get the band back together. There's no question about that. And there's a 25% Russian diaspora in Estonia and Latvia. And they're really good. They did this in Ukraine and in Crimea. They're really good at stirring the pot so some Russian nationals in there have some injuries or get attacked. And then they say, well, we have to go in and defend them. And so that's my concern, especially in Estonia and Latvia.
So we have one issue there, and let's go ahead now and turn to the issue in the Middle East, certainly, which is still capturing a lot of attention. I want to get down to this lily pad strategy that we are always talking about when it comes down to defeating different forces. It's been used before. It's nothing really new, but now they're talking about using it in Iraq to defeat ISIS there. Lily pads are basically, again, if I'm not correct, they're just bases, places that you can move from place to place to place, and you're basically creating a strategy to encircle people and have all your equipment and your personnel ready, correct?
Well, that's the concept that they have with lily pads, and I think they base it off of what we did in Anbar back in 2007 with FOBs, forward operating bases. But the key term with a FOB is operating. These guys are non-combatants, and so they're going to be out there. They're very close to Ramadi. They're at Taqadum Air Base, which is not far away, and we know ISIS now controls Ramadi. And I don't like this strategy. I worry that we're going to pay a price for this.
What would that price be? Would it be overconfidence, perhaps?
No, I think the price is American lives. You're going to have 450 non-combatant soldiers in this air base, and ISIS has rockets, ISIS has mortars. You have to resupply these lily pads, which means you either put trucks on the ground and they're vulnerable to IEDs, or if you try to resupply them by air, ISIS has ground-to-air missiles. So I worry what happens with our soldiers over there who are in a non-combatant role. And I will tell you this, they would much rather have the capacity to do some offensive operations were they equipped properly.
Okay, there it is, the next point. Instead of doing this lily pad strategy, would we then, in your opinion, be better off if simply stated, we put in the full-time bases, we put in the full-time troops? Some are going to call it an occupying force, but there is no way, some would say, for us to win this war, which is what you have to do when you go to war. You got to win, unless you put the people there, arm them, and put them to work full-time.
Well, that's the straw man that we hear a lot from the White House, is that, well, we're not going to put another 150,000 troops back in. Nobody's asking for that. I think a great solution, things that worked really well in Afghanistan, are as you embed some special operations forces with the Iraqi security forces. You give them the ability to do some forward air controlling so that we have some serious air power that comes in. I mean, we've got, what, 10 or 12 sorties a day? ISIS is out holding victory parades after Ramadi. Do you think they have any concerns about what we're doing from the air? We have 10 or 12 sorties a day, and there's no indication that they're even dropping their munitions because we don't have any forward air controllers. We should be doing 500 sorties a day if we want to degrade ISIS.
Okay, now I got a minute left here, and to your point then, let's talk about the leader of al-Qaeda's affiliate in Yemen was killed last week by a missile fired from a CIA drone. So you have the White House and others talking about these decapitation strikes that are killing these leaders. But don't we need to just go back and say, you can't kill one cockroach and expect a whole 1,000 more just to show up? One doesn't do it here, yes?
That's right. Look, it's great when we whack one of these bloodthirsty troglodytes. I couldn't be happier. But in terms of a strategy unto itself, Al-Qaeda is very diverse. There are a lot of junior troglodytes that are just ready to take charge as soon as somebody else goes away. And that's what we see. And that's been the case for years and years and years. We need a more all-encompassing strategy other than just decapitation.
And I noticed full well that you chuckled as well as everybody does when I use the term cockroaches. But hey, if it fits, you got to go ahead and use it with what we're fighting right here. Colonel Patrick Murray, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
All right, take care. Now it's up to you. You are in the Oval Office, you the viewers. How would you plan to handle Vladimir Putin? Let's go back to that first of all, because we've all talked about Iraq, Iran, the Middle East, but how would you handle the bare-chested dictator? Tell us your plan. Go to Newsmax.com/comments. Tell us exactly, don't just give us a quick word or two, tell us exactly how you would deal with Vladimir Putin. Coming up next, we'll deal with your money as we continue right here on the only program that questions everything. This is MidPoint.